I would say that whenever you have a presence of people of color in any state, regardless of the number, you need to pay attention to what you are not doing in order to prepare all the members of the community for dealing with people who are different. So I would say that even though the number is small, whether it's considered a problem or not, attention needs to be paid to that. One of the reasons I would say that is because we have young people who are leaving our state and living in other communities. We have young people who stay in our state. So whether they leave or go, in order to prepare the generation that's coming after them or allow them to be effective in whatever job that they take on, they need to know how to work with people or live with people who are different.
But you mean if they leave Vermont, they're certainly going to run into more people who are
That's
different.
correct. But if they stay in the state, let's say that we have someone who stays in the state and is going to be a teacher, or they're going to be a social worker, or they're going to be a doctor, then they're going to encounter people at some time who are different. They might think different, their religion might be different, whatever it might be, but preparing them in ways that allow them to work with people who are different makes them better at their job, makes them more effective at their job.
Do you think that the diversity of the state, even outside of the Chittenden County area, is going to increase over the next couple of decades? Do you think that there'll be more non-Hispanic white people moving to Brattleboro and Bennington, and even to the little Green Mountain towns and the Northeast Kingdom and the rural areas, or are those places going to continue to be overwhelmingly white?
Well, people move to communities where there is already some sort of concentration. People who are in the state of Vermont, if they leave Chittenden County and they move to other areas, it's because they've been here a while already. If you have people moving from other states and moving to a community, they're moving to those areas because there are jobs that might be available for them.
Right.
But you very rarely will you find a person of color moving to an area where there isn't already a concentration. And we have the data that goes back many, many years that talks about how that happens. So let's talk about when Southeast Asians, for example, came to a lot of our states. They moved into communities where there was already a concentration of Southeast Asian people. Only did they start moving out after they'd been here. Usually the next generation moves out,
Right.
not necessarily that original generation. But so I would say that as we look ahead, we probably still won't find a large concentration of people of color in those areas where there isn't already a concentration. The majority of them still will be in the Chittenden County area. One, because of what's available to people in the Chittenden County area in terms of the services that are available, in terms of the social activities that are available, the schools and the number, and the kids who are in those schools. So you tend to move to an area where you think that there will be some understanding and appreciation of who you are.
Have there been many serious problems, serious incidents of racial discrimination, of even violence, or of verbal or written slurs and things like that? Or has this pretty much been a kind of a minor problem?
I would say anytime you have one incident, it's one incident too many. You're not going to find a lot of those incidents because there's not a large number of kids in the schools. But when you have one child who feels as though they're being picked on or bullied or mistreated because of what they look like or what they sound like, it's one child too many.
The term diversity seems to have replaced civil rights and equal rights. Is there some reason for that? Is there a different sort of nuance or shade of meaning in the term diversity?
I think it's just how we've evolved. I think that people don't think that we still need to talk about civil rights. I disagree. I think civil rights is still very much a component. But then I'm a child of the '60s. I was a part of that. My parents were part of that civil rights movement. So for me, that's very much a part of who I am. But so I think that we've just evolved over the years in terms of the language that we're using. We're also looking at what seems to be palatable to some people. Some people tend to prefer the word diversity, although now it's becoming an overused term and losing some of its meaning. So it's going to be a new word that's going to come out probably eventually. But I think eventually, I mean, right now, diversity is losing some of its overall meaning. We're not quite sure what does that mean, who does that entail now, because when diversity in many ways now is everything in the kitchen sink.
Right.
So, if we really want to begin to change language, if we really want to impact the way in which impact relationships in terms of from a people of color perspective, then we do have to be very deliberate about what we mean by diversity. And sometimes that's multiculturalism that we really are talking about.
All right, now and define that for me. When you use that term, what does it mean to you?
Well, when I use multiculturalism, multiculturalism really does tend to be more race based, and it really is talking about looking at people who come from different cultural backgrounds that is steeped in one's racial identity. Diversity now we know can mean any variety of things. It's not just, it could be race, gender, sexuality, class, any variety of things. Even the way in which you think will sometimes fall under that category. So that's why it says become like a catch-all in many instances.